speaking of the MCU universe, we're gonna have to go to their version of Civil War, which was a loose adaptation of the 2006 comic arc of the same name. In that comic, it's centered around the idea of pro versus anti-registration sides after a disaster that caused the death of many civilians. The film would center largely around the idea that there should be superhero accords, so kind of the same concept, but also detoured a bit onto Steve Rogers and his need to keep Bucky Barnes safe. That was a huge part of that movie. It was a lot of why he was anti-accord. It was. This film would culminate in the reveal, for Tony at least, that the Winter Soldier, aka the aforementioned Bucky Barnes, was the person who had killed his parents. This causes him to go off the deep end because he was not the most stable person in this movie. He would end up battling full out with the Winter Soldier and Captain America, and we would get actually an admittedly very cool fight scene where the two teamed up to take him down. This climactic battle would result in a moment that in my theater at least actually elicited audible gasps from the audience. It's the moment where at the end, Captain America brings down his shield right down the center of Iron Man's chest, right where his arc reactor used to be, which a few films earlier would have killed him, and even then leaves him there in the cold, in that hideout with no power. It was an intense moment. Defeated, and he lost his friends. I mean, although he had been imprisoning them, it was not the best look for Tony in either Civil War. This movie would divide fans into pro Iron Man and pro Cap camps for quite a while. Number 9, Original Sin, aka Original Retcons. This was a Marvel event from 2014, wherein it was revealed that there were secrets in the Marvel Universe, original sins, because we were playing upon the biblical allegory here. So what was Iron Man's original sin? Well, it was revealed that he had tampered with the gamma bomb that had caused Bruce Banner to become the Hulk. And when Bruce figures this out, he is of course enraged. So he manages to get a hold of some extremist tech so that he can hold on to his Bruce Banner consciousness when he transforms into the Hulk, so that he can go and confront Tony properly. And confront him he does, taking out his Hulkbuster armor in literally one punch. Just one punch. He was the One Punch Man. Tony survives the fight by running away to get more armor. A loss or a strategic retreat? You decide. Number 8, Thor. After the comic book Civil War, a lot of heroes had some strong feelings towards Tony. I mean, Thor ended up being cloned by Reed in this arc. Just they needed a big, heavy muscle guy on their team, so they cloned Thor. Nobody likes being cloned without their consent. I mean, Tony was creating alternate dimension prisons. It was just not going well. After this, him and Thor would end up getting into it. And it's important to remember here that Thor is indeed a god, and Tony is a guy in some really souped up armor, which he actually has to remind Thor of because Thor is dismantling him so thoroughly, throwing him up into the air, ripping his mask off, just pieces coming off everywhere. He needs to be calmed down because that could have gone pretty intensely. He made his point though, and for many fans they felt it was a take that Tony moment, because after Civil War there was a lot of take that Tony, despite the fact that reviews said that the comic was balanced and nuanced, which I think if it had been there wouldn't have been as much take that Tony. Number 7, Contest of Champions 2. Let them fight. There's something about that plot that just captures the imagination of fans. Just pitted together, normally on an island-style location, and forced to duke it out. Well, this happened in Contest of Champions 2, and Iron Man was pitted against mutant powerhouse Psylocke. Now, at first they were pretty evenly matched because her psychic attacks weren't really working on him because his armor could see through them, because she tried some psychological tricks. However, ultimately, because she had nanites inside of her, she was able to deliver this flurry of rapid-fire blows that were also backed up by her psionic abilities, and that took him out. If you're gonna use the Goku punch strategy, then you know, the other person gotta be prepared, and sometimes your armor just can't take that, and this was one of those times.
Number 10, Batman gets punched out by Hal Jordan. Batman had a hard time getting along with the Green Lantern after his murderous incarnation as Parallax. The tension between these two came to a head in Green Lantern Rebirth, when Hal decides he's pretty much fed up with Batman's paranoia, and he just socks him one. A real mean right hook right to the jaw. Batman drops from the single blow unconscious. Guy Gardner happens to be nearby, who Batman basically did the same thing to in Justice League number 5, just a one shot, boom. He's pretty happy to see Batman get what's been coming to him. It's certainly not Batman's worst defeat by a pretty wide margin, but it's definitely a serious blow to Batman's pride as well as his face, since he's basically just been knocked out with a single punch from a regular human. Then again, Batman doesn't exactly have like superpowered endurance or anything, so it does make sense that he could be brought down in one punch. What really gets me going is if Batman was so paranoid, why didn't he see this punch coming? World's greatest detective gets blindsided?
And before we continue, guys, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up on our video, because it goes a long way for us here at the studio. And if you don't do it, we're gonna be really sad for like an entire year, so. Number 9, Jason Todd. A Death in the Family is a 4-part storyline written by Jim Starlin and published in 1988. And it's one of the biggest DC moments ever in comic history. This was a huge moment in the Bat story because we see the Joker beat the second coming of Robin, Jason Todd. And when I say he beats him, I mean he beats him like to death. Yeah, he gets a crowbar and then a bomb just to end it all off. And it's more than just a beating that's so horrible. The Joker also used Jason's birth mother. Yeah, he blackmailed her in order to get closer to Jason. And then of course the Joker killed her too. So this is a double whammy. All the defeats, all the feels, our hearts. And what's even crazier about this whole thing is that it was up to the fans to decide his fate. Yeah, this actually came to life thanks to the producers allowing the readers to decide what happens next. There was a 36-hour period with a number you could call and vote for if you wanted the Joker to kill Robin or not. And it was pretty close apparently, something like 72 votes a difference, which is wild. Some fans even admitted to calling in more than once. You know, they just really wanted him out of there, eh? And this was of course a blessing in disguise because it brought us the glorious Red Hood, who we can't help but love.
Number 8, Spider-Man vs. Mysterio. When Mysterio first appeared way back in 1964, he gave Spidey a real run for his money. In this story, reports of Spider-Man robbing different stores in the night are hitting the news. Pete becomes pretty worried and thinks maybe he's going crazy, committing crimes in his sleep or something. He even considers visiting a psychiatrist at one point, but decides against it, fearing that he might ruin his secret identity. Later, a costumed being calling himself Mysterio appears at the Daily Bugle and tells Jameson that he's a crime fighter and he's here to bring Spider-Man to justice. He vanishes in a puff of smoke, leaving a note telling JJ to publish a challenge for Spider-Man to meet Mysterio on the Brooklyn Bridge for a showdown. The battle that follows is a particularly bitter defeat for Spidey, as Mysterio uses his special effects expertise to counteract Spider-Man's webbing, causing it to melt, and messes with his spider sense using a powerful mist that deadens the senses and reduces Spider-Man's reactions. Spidey is also blinded by the mist. Afterwards, Mysterio has a great photo op with Jameson, being hailed as a hero for taking on the menace of Spider-Man. Spidey uses this opportunity to hit Mysterio with a spider tracer and follows him back to his base to learn the truth behind Mysterio's evil ways, to eventually later defeat him.
Number 7, Batman, The Dark Knight Rises. Directed by, of course, Christopher Nolan, who had done the previous 2 installments, comes a pretty epic conclusion to the hit trilogy. Released in 2012, The Dark Knight Rises, as you guessed from the title alone, is about Batman rising up. But from where and why? Well, how about a broken back thanks to Bane, for starters? Yeah, this is 8 years after the Joker had a run-in with Gotham City. So now Batman has to return to take down Tom Hardy as he mumbles and frowns aggressively around town. So after Catwoman walked him into a 1v1 in the tunnels of Gotham, we get one of my favorite fight scenes from any superhero movie ever. And what I love about this scene the most is that there's no music the entire time. All you hear is Batman struggling to try and make a dent on this guy. And it makes it more realistic. There's no heroic music above that distracts you, it's just stressful. It's so stressful, I mean, you can see Bruce become more and more exhausted by the minute. Leaves you out of breath almost. And it all comes to a screeching halt when Bane picks up Bruce for one last blow, right to the spinal cord. Now, I know people give this movie a hard time, but seeing Batman get his ass kicked like this reminded me that it's not always the hero that gets the last punch.
Number 6, Wolverine, crushed by the Punisher. The Punisher and Wolverine are a couple of rusty nails, real tough guys who don't take any guff and ask questions after the whooping is done. As such, when these guys go toe-to-toe in Punisher number 17 in 2001, they get straight to wrecking each other after a very short truce. They're both on the hunt for a guy who's been killing mobsters and leaving severed legs behind. Wolverine suspects the Punisher, and of course Punisher's prime suspect is Wolverine. These two guys have a pretty nasty showdown that does not end well for old Wolverine. Punisher literally shoots Logan's face off and then blasts him right between the legs with a machine gun. Wolverine is doubled over in pain on the ground, as you can imagine, and Punisher, realizing he can't really stop Wolverine just by hurting him, crushes Wolverine underneath a steamroller and parks it on Logan's head with just his hands sticking out. Some very effective work by the Punisher and a seriously humiliating defeat for Wolverine.
And number 5, Spider-Man and Craven. We take a look now at Craven's Last Hunt, published in 1987, and it has quite an interesting illustration on the front page. We see a dark suit Spider-Man crawling out of a grave covered in mud, and then in the background we read some alarming words on the tombstone, and it says, "Here lies Spider-Man." Huh, what? Okay, so this 5-part series, of course, as you would guess, centers around the death of Spider-Man in a way. But how does such a thing happen to old Sticky Pete? Well, Craven is frustrated after his failed attempts to catch Spider-Man, so he comes up with this all-new plan that involves him shooting Spider-Man. So Craven buries him, and even worse, he takes a Spider-Man suit and then takes his place in the world. So not only do you get defeated, but also replaced, adding insult to injury, literally. So then the new Spider-Man, our boy Craven, now he roams in New York and brutally attacks criminals, including a group that was actually assaulting Mary Jane. So then 2 weeks later, Peter wakes up from the effects of the tranquilizer that Craven used, and he digs himself out to freedom. Now, I've woken up late, maybe I've missed a class or two before, but I mean this is just a whole nother level of stress. So when Spider-Man confronts Craven, Craven gets defensive. He's like, "Oh, no, buddy, I'm the real deal now, I'm doing this. You go back to your little hole. I'm doing the Spider-Man thing now, right? Get out of here, bucko." And then Craven releases Vermin, who is just, a bundle of joy to hang out with. He attacks Peter thinking he was the same Spider-Man that had given him a beatdown before. And then Peter has to convince Vermin to cool her jets. Vermin is actually about to kill Peter until Craven intervenes. I mean, talk about a messy 2 weeks, holy shit.
Number 4, Cyclops Infinity War. Some of the heroes on this list got it pretty rough sometimes, and this defeat of Cyclops during the final battles in Infinity War is especially brutal. After Thanos had obtained the Infinity Gauntlet and performed his epic universe-altering snap, the remaining superheroes head off into space to battle against the Mad Titan. A lot of superheroes die, a testament to Thanos' epic power, but Cyclops suffers one of the worst deaths imaginable. Just as Cyclops uses one of his signature optic blasts, Thanos conjures an airtight, unbreakable cube around Cyclops' head, and, unable to use his blasts to free himself, Cyclops falls to the ground, suffocating in the cube. Captain America can't even break the cube open with a smash from his shield. A lot of the heroes who died in this event got it pretty quick. Even Cap is knocked out quickly with an epic backhand from Thanos that breaks his neck. This is a really tragic moment for all, but a super devastating defeat for Cyclops. I'm not even that big of a Cyclops fan, but the way this thing unfolded really made me feel for the guy.
Number 3, Magneto and Wolverine. Look, I bite my nails, alright, a lot. I can't even pull a hangnail some days, okay? I grab it, I count myself down, and then last minute I just bail. It's too spicy, I don't have enough willpower to do it. Now, I couldn't even imagine this next one, okay? I couldn't imagine if all of my bones got ripped out of my body at the same time. And that's exactly what happens to Wolverine when Magneto has had enough of his nonsense. So this all takes place during the Fatal Attractions event. Wolverine doesn't even have a chance to scream, apparently. The adamantium that bonded to his bones erupted outward like water bursting through a dam. That's how they put it. Ugh. And he's still breathing when this happens. I mean, if this isn't one of the worst things to go through, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, thankfully Xavier wiped Magneto's memory and then Wolverine was out of commission for a while. I mean, he had metal spikes sticking out of his body, so I don't think he's getting any grocery shopping done anytime soon.
Number 2, Superman gets beat by Alfred. Injustice, Gods Among Us had some pretty epic moments, like this crazy showdown between Batman and Superman that ends in a broken back for Batman. In this story, we visit an alternate DC universe in which Superman has gone mad and takes over the world as a dictator, after witnessing the destruction of Metropolis by the Joker and accidentally killing his pregnant wife. It's enough to drive anyone mad, really. Batman tries to stop Superman, eventually forming a rebellion against Superman's regime. Both are joined on either side by other heroes who share their feelings, and a superhero war rages on. Sometime after poor Batman has his back destroyed, Superman is confronted by Alfred, who has recently taken one of the superpowered pills Lex Luthor invented for Superman to use to create a superpowered army. What follows is an epic and totally unexpected beatdown as Alfred gets revenge for Batman, laying some serious blows on Superman with no remorse. Alfred cares deeply for Batman, and he really lets it show here, hammering Superman's head into the ground.
And number 1, Vision, Infinity War. Okay, so Patty D mentioned earlier a pretty brutal death from the Infinity War comic, but if you're not aware of the comic, maybe you'll remember this one from the movie. So the Russo brothers made what's arguably the best superhero film to date. I mean, all of these characters who led their own franchise crammed into one single movie, even popping some blood vessels in his face at the same time. He momentarily turns Drax and Mantis into silly string and flesh cubes, and he throws Gamora off of a cliff for the Soul Stone and stabs Iron Man, forcing Strange to hand over the Time Stone. But they save the best and most heartbreaking for last, the Mind Stone. The stone that is Vision. So after a last effort attempt of removing the stone in Wakanda, his lover, Wanda, Scarlet Witch, is forced to destroy it in order for Thanos not to get it. So while holding back Thanos this entire time, she has to kill her lover. She does so successfully, and we felt the pain. The theater sat silent as we tried to comprehend that this actually just happened. But then Thanos uses the most recent installment on his glizzy gauntlet, the Time Stone. He then brings Vision back to life in front of Wanda, grabs him by his neck as well, and then pulls the stone out, leaving Vision's lifeless and colorless body to plop on the ground. And what's crazy about this is that he wasn't even using another Infinity Stone to pull that out. He just digs through vibranium with raw strength and he plucks it out, again like a hangnail. Crazy.
Coming in at number 10, we have Don't Mess with Batman. It will always be somewhat of a mystery as to how Guy Gardner is able to hold on to his lantern ring. The dude is kind of rude and childish, but I will admit he has pulled off some pretty impressive things as a lantern. He's just not what you would expect from a member of the most renowned space cops, and there have been plenty of times when Guy has crossed the line, like when he was forced to work under Batman with the Justice League International. Guy didn't think this made any sense. Why was a dude in a bat suit telling him what to do? Why was Guy Gardner not the one who was running the team? So Guy kept going on about how he should have been at the helm. He was whining, complaining, and insulting Batman. So Batman wanted to get everyone in order the fastest way possible and one-punched Guy Gardner. He literally knocked the dude out, a Green Lantern in one shot. So if Guy had any questions about who should be in charge, they would have all been answered as soon as he woke up and put his nose back in place. This was hero on hero, but for Guy this was still pretty damn embarrassing to get floored from one shot. Coming in at number 9, we have the Lantern Club. I mean, if I was a villain with super strength, I would have done the same move. It's really killing two birds with one stone, or two supers with one super. If you flip open the comic Countdown to Crisis issue 3, you will see two heroes squaring off against one villain. In the hero's corner you have Troya and Hal Jordan, a powerful team up that would normally come out victorious. And in the villain's corner we have Mary Marvel, a villain that sounds like she should be in a straight to DVD Christmas special, but in this encounter she showed that she's no slouch. When she takes on the two do-gooders, she quickly knocks down Troya and then snags Hal by his ankle and then proceeds to beat Troya with Hal using the lantern like a club. And just like that you have both of them bloodied and beaten. Really, that was the most effective way to get the job done. Coming in at number 8, we have Spider-Man versus the Spot. The Spot will go down as one of the worst Spider-Man villains ever, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't able to get one over on Spidey. For those of you who don't know, the Spot is a villain that is covered with small portals all over his body. Think of him as the game portal, where you go in one portal and you come out the other, even if it defies the laws of physics. In their encounter, Spider-Man tries to punch the Spot and ends up clocking himself in the face. It was like a grade school bully going, "Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself." Coming in at number 7, we have Pants Punched and KO'd. Not all supers come from Marvel and DC, so when I get a chance I like to sneak in some moments from outside the superhero norms. For this one we're gonna head into the world of anime to one of my favorite shows, My Hero Academia. In season 1 we have the Sports Festival, where new promising heroes go up against each other for the entertainment of the people. In this tournament we see Aoyama, who has a belly laser power similar to Cyclops, but it comes out of his stomach. He goes up against against Ashido, who has acid powers. The two square off in a short scrap that ends with Ashido blasting Aoyama's belt line with acid. This causes his pants to fall down, and Ashido slides in and uppercuts him unconscious. So getting knocked out while you're scrambling to pull up your pants, yeah, that's one of the worst ways to go out. Coming in at number 6, we have packing on the pounds. You only have to look at comic books for about 4 seconds to get enough unrealistic body standards to give an entire generation of people body dysmorphia. So when one hero puts on enough pounds that he couldn't even use his powers, that really sticks out, especially when your power is how fast you can move. I mean, if this was to happen to the Blob, I don't think anyone would notice. Being big is kind of his thing. Who were we talking about? Well, of course, the Flash. When we zoom back to the Silver Age of comics, we find an issue when one of the Flash's arch enemies, Gorilla Grodd, comes up with a plan to stop the speedster from running, and it's simple but effective. He makes him get so fat that he can't use his powers anymore. Grodd zaps the Flash with a ray that makes him retain water without him knowing. This made him bulk up until he literally weighed a ton. It would be pretty embarrassing to go from the fastest man alive to the star of my 600-pound life. Coming in number 5, we have Wolverine gets a girl's touch. Known for being one of the coolest characters in the Marvel Universe, it must have hurt to have his body tossed through building after building from one shot from a 12-year-old girl. In issue 12 of The Runaways, Wolverine is hot on the tail of Cloak. He eventually tracks down Cloak, and lo and behold, he's being protected by Molly Hayes, aka Princess Powerful. He tries to negotiate, but things turn violent pretty quickly. Downside for Logan is that Molly is probably one of the strongest mutants ever, and with one touch he's fired out of there like a snot rocket in the shower. Getting beat up by a girl must have not been the easiest emotional scar to get rid of. Coming in at number 4, we have the Yellow Room. Lanterns are very particular about colors. Some are good, some are bad, and there's a spectrum, blah 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 blah. While in All-Star Batman and Robin, we see Hal Jordan get pranked, triggered, and beat up by his least favorite color, yellow. Batman is going out of his way to mess with Hal Jordan, decides to explore his artistic side and paint a room yellow. That's quite the statement. This of course sets Hal off when he walks in, but I don't think he was ready for what was about to happen next. A young Robin slips in and manages to pickpocket Hal's ring right off his finger, and then the teenager whoops his ass. Losing your ring, getting humiliated in a yellow room, and getting KO'd by a teenager, that is a rough one. Coming in at number 3, we have Superman is trusting and dumb. Not how you would think to describe the Man of Steel, but when you hear how Lex Luthor was able to trick him, you'll be on my side. There was a comic where Superman is approached by a tailor, a guy who seemed to be a kind fellow who just wanted to do a good deed for the man who keeps the city safe. You can tell that this is an older comic. When was the last time a tailor approached you randomly and offered to make you a suit? Well, this mystery man offers to give the Man of Steel a brand new suit that will freshen up his image. Superman thinks this is amazing and accepts. The tailor makes him this suit, and without questioning anything, he puts it on. I think this might have been a case of superhero privilege. You think that you should be getting gifts from strangers at any time of the day. Well, it turns out this generous tailor was actually Lex Luthor in disguise. You think the world's greatest hero would be on the watch for the one person who's trying to kill him 24/7, but I guess he let this one slip. Oh, and there's more. Lex Luthor planted a trap in the suit. He sewed a lead-covered clump of kryptonite into the suit, which Superman never noticed. He didn't take the half second to look at the suit with his X-ray vision. Nope, there's literally a bomb in his clothes that will expose him to his weakness at the worst moment, and it was given to him in person by his arch-enemy. Lex Luthor would have had to put Superman through a whole fitting process, and he still didn't pick up on it. Coming in at number 2, we have Tin Can Iron Man. As time goes on, we have seen heroes and villains become more intricate. The way that they fight, how they can be beaten, how they use their powers. For the most part, all of these things have become more exciting. But when some heroes were originally crafted, they didn't have such interesting pieces to them. For this slip up, let's head all the way back to Avengers number 2. In this issue, the team of Earth's mightiest heroes has an enemy they never thought they would have to face, themselves. Well, kinda. See, they take on Space Phantom. This is a villain who can copy any form exactly. There's literally nothing off about his imitations, and this was his plan to beat the Avengers by turning them on each other. This was Civil War before Civil War. At first the Avengers are fooled, but then they learn his tricks, and while the Space Phantom is a perfect imitation of Iron Man, Thor is able to stop him by making it rain. And not in the cool way, he didn't throw a stack of cash in his face. Literally, rain comes down and it rusts the perfect imitation of Iron Man so he can't move. I know some of you at home are going to complain because it was Space Phantom that was beaten and not Iron Man, but it was a perfect imitation of Iron Man, meaning that Iron Man could have also be beaten by rust, which is one of the most embarrassing things that Iron Man could have learned about himself. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have the Justice League losing to Killer Frost. There's no shortage of villains that have ice powers. When it comes to Killer Frost, she's okay. She's never really had a moment to shine. She isn't really a villain that any S-tier hero would even bother with. She would be happy to see Elastic Man show up to fight her. But there was one time when her and the Suicide Squad were taking on the Boy in Blue, and Enchantress was able to smash Superman so hard he was laying on the ground immobilized. Soup has always had trouble with magic users. Well, Killer Frost was there and saw this as a golden opportunity. She used her powers to suck Superman's energy dry, draining him of his life force and his powers. She then flew off and took out the entire Justice League. Now, while it being hard for anyone from the League to take down someone that powerful, the fact that they let someone like Killer Frost get the drop on them, that is pretty embarrassing. This is one of the biggest upsets in comic book history.
Number 5. Harley Quinn tragedy. Working with the Joker has got to be taxing mentally, probably even physically demanding, but it's mostly the going insane that you would have to watch out for. Harley Quinn is a great example of this, and her dynamic relationship with Joker has unfolded into all kinds of different directions over the years. During the Death of the Family story, Joker does a whole bunch of super messed up stuff, including walking around wearing his own face that was cut off earlier, and tricking the entire Bat family into thinking he's cut off everyone's faces. If that wasn't bad enough, at one point, Harley winds up at Joker's mercy after he fails to kill her by dumping her in a vat full of chemicals. She wakes up chained to the wall, surrounded by corpses, and Joker drops a bombshell. She is not the first Harley Quinn, and she won't be the last. It's like the ultimate confirmation of her fears that Joker doesn't love her, and he's just using her as a disposable sidekick. It's an epic moment that really highlights the depths of Joker's insanity, and totally a tragic moment for Harley. If you haven't read Death of the Family, I definitely recommend it, although it's a bit on the gruesome side. The artwork is incredible, and there's some really crazy moments. Number 4. Lobo gets decapitated. Harley Quinn is an incredibly popular character, and as such, has some super epic moments and is a great provider of fan service. She knows how to deliver. In the Injustice comic, she actually ends up killing Lobo after getting juiced up by a pill that gives you super strength. Where can I get a prescription for those anyway? Asking for a friend. So Harley sort of teams up with Green Arrow and Black Canary, and the three of them wind up being followed back to Arrow Cave by Lobo. Lobo gets shot in both of his eyes by Green Arrow, and then Canary follows this up with her signature Canary cry. At this point, Harley leaps on top of the main man and tears his head clean off. Lobo is a super powerful dude, so to see him get done dirty like this is a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. This event is highlighted by the fact that Harley and Lobo actually once had a short romance, but it definitely was not meant to last. Number 3. Composite Superman. This next one comes from way back in the 1960s, in an issue of World's Finest Comics, number 142, in which Batman and Superman go up against Composite Superman. Also known as Joe Meach, Composite Supes is a total failure in life, and he just wants to be somebody and be remembered. He somehow ends up working as a caretaker in the Superman Museum, and one day, a bolt of lightning strikes some of the superpowered artifacts and gives him the powers of all the members of the Legion of Superheroes. He makes himself a costume that's a mix of Batman and Superman styles, literally just like split down the middle like Two-Face, and he even ends up learning their secret identities. It's a crazy storyline, made even crazier by the ending. Composite Superman is totally wiping the floor with Batman and Superman. They don't have a chance, but his memories start to fade away and disappear, and he risks just forgetting everything that he's ever done. In a last-ditch effort, he tries to write some stuff down before he passes out, but just doesn't make it. It's all the more embarrassing as poor Jason Meach just wanted to become somebody, and now not even he will remember that he once had awesome superpowers. Number 2. Lex Luther Cryes. This one comes from the final issue of Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman, published in 2006. In the final issue, it seems like Lex might be victorious in the end. He's taken a special concoction that gives him the powers of Superman for 24 hours, and he uses this time to try to take over the entire planet. However, things get really crazy when Clark Kent reveals himself to be Superman and fires a gravity gun at Luthor. Things start getting emotional, and Lex is in this cloud and has kind of an epiphany about the pettiness of his hatred for Superman. Not only does he cry like he just saw the end of Infinity War, but his special concoction wears off too and he loses his powers. Lex starts complaining about how he had a vision and he could have saved the world, but Superman just lays the smackdown on him and says, "You could have saved the world years ago if it mattered to you, Luthor." It's totally awesome. Number 1. Doctor Doom versus Squirrel Girl. This one is likely one of the most infamous supervillain defeats in Marvel history. The notoriously nefarious Doctor Doom has some seriously epic evil plans, and despite Iron Man's best efforts, he winds up on top, and Iron Man is in a pretty tough spot. Luckily for him, our native nutcracker from the Great Lakes Avengers, Squirrel Girl, shows up and drives Doom to the brink of madness with the help of her furry friends. Thousands of squirrels overwhelm Doctor Doom's ship, chewing on the wires and distracting Doom himself, while Squirrel Girl helps Iron Man to escape.
Number 10, clowned around. Okay, we're going back old school for this one right off the bat. Kathy Kane entered Detective Comics in issue 233. She was a circus trapeze artist who turned into Batman, the usual, you know? She was a pretty big deal in comics. She was around from 1956 to 1979. So she was around for 252 issues. She was a part of the Bat family. So what happened? How did she go out? Was it heroic? No, not at all. How did a well-trained Batwoman get taken out? Well, let's answer that question. Now, at this point, she was retired. She was still running a circus, but nonetheless, she was retired. She wasn't choking out bad guys anymore. The League of Assassins find her, and then it turns into this brawl, even with Batman showing up at one point. Now, Batman is useless. He gets knocked out, and then when he wakes up, everything's done. The action's done. Kathy Kane is on the ground, holding onto her batsuit, and that's the end of her. That's the last time we see her. That is issue 485. That's the end of Kathy Kane. Okay, there's no big fight, really. There's no closing statement. She didn't save Batman's life. She didn't save anyone at the circus to, you know, it's just, we don't see it. Just a big L. Just a big old L. Readers were upset because all this time, and that's how you write Kathy Kane out, just to make Batman darker and to make his arc more cool and Gotham-like. Sure, okay. Number 9, Forgotten Foe. In Avengers issue 57, Vision joins the team. Now the issue is pretty deep because the team is trying to figure Vision out, where he came from, what his demeanor is, all that jazz. All he knows is that Ultron created him to attack the Avengers, which is pretty threatening from a guy who can walk through walls. So we start asking Hank Pym what he knows, but amnesia makes that a difficult task. Now he finally remembers what happened. He remembers that Ultron started to become a problem. So Hank turned himself into Goliath to defend himself, but in doing so, he went super big and he hit his head off the ceiling of the room he was in. Because, of course that happened. Hank's head versus stucco. He grew big and then he knocked himself out, and that's why he couldn't remember anything. Honestly, it makes a lot of sense. Pretty embarrassing, but it checks out. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be super awesome. It's super helpful for our channel. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Now let's get right back to this list. Number 8, Paint It Yellow. All-Star Batman and Robin, the Boy Wonder. The duo goes toe-to-toe with Green Lantern, and the trick here, if you want to beat the crap out of a Green Lantern, is to paint everything yellow. If the Simpsons family got naked and fought Green Lantern, there's a good chance they might win. Green Lantern is surprised by this 12-year-old boy's decision. He honestly undermines him. But readers were just surprised that he stuck around in the yellow room anyways. I mean, he just kept punching and he was kind of losing. Batman was beating him up a lot. And Batman was distracting him, so at the same time, Boy Wonder steals the power ring from Green Lantern. If you're not gonna use it, you might as well lose it. See ya. He then gets beat up even more, like, dude, did they paint the town yellow or just this room? Walk out of the room, be like, hey guys, I'll see you in the lobby. Good luck. Number 7, Robin's Hurdle. So sure, Robin's pretty sweet, being able to sneak the ring off and all, but what if I told you that athletic equipment stopped Robin dead in his tracks once before? Teen Titans Volume 1, Issue 4, way back in the 60s. The team was curious when a young sprinter won a race to qualify for the Olympics, but he just kept running after, like he was cursed, which is pretty scary if you think about it. Imagine not being able to stop running, like Forrest Gump style. Ooh. Scary. Now at the same time, Green Arrow's sidekick Speedy needed their help as well because he was being attacked when he was practicing for some Olympic stuff as well. Some guy tried to sabotage his arrows. This organization called Diablo was behind it all. So there's a clear type of villain out here with a clear project. So the Teen Titans traveled to Tokyo just to make sure the Olympics went smoothly, and Diablo met them there. He took the team down so easily, and Robin gets caught because he can't break out of 5 loose hurdles. And that's it, that's the nail in the coffin. The entire team at that point is captured and put in the rings of the Olympics. And then of course, our guest Titan is blindfolded and is about to shoot a bunch of arrows. What a mess. Now eventually Speedy figures it out and the team is saved, but like Speedy had to save all of them. Number 6, mugged with a crossbow. Green Lantern, Green Arrow, issue 85. This is so insane. Now the issue is front and center and it's talking about narcotics. So already it's like a very aggressive issue. The first few pages, we see Oliver Queen walking at night and he's in a bad mood. There's some girl problems and some punks try and rob him. Now, it's not like he was tired. He didn't just come back from saving the day. He was actually in a pretty bad mood. Like I said, he had lady troubles. He was ready to fight. He was actually looking for a fight. He was glad they came along. Otherwise, he said he'd have to go home and punch the walls instead. Kyle style, you know? He was ready to go and he was fighting these punks off that were trying to rob him. And then one of them pulled out a crossbow because apparently it's Van Helsing and then, you know, muggers have crossbows all of a sudden. And then Ollie gets shot through the shoulder. He didn't even like regard the guy. He's like, oh, arrows. I know my way around that. Like, it's still an arrow. You're still made of skin. Of course. Kicking off the list at number 10, the Ringmaster. Issue 3 of the Incredible Hulk back in volume 1, we see the Hulk take on the Ringmaster. Will the mighty Hulk be a match for the Ringmaster? Well, apparently, yeah. He takes on a whole circus of crime who, might I add, do not have any superpowers, but right off the bat, the human cannonball gets the Hulk quite good. The human cannonball, just a regular guy with a makeshift hammer. This dude's spine would fold on impact if he cannonballed into the Incredible Hulk. So already I'm upset. And then it gets worse. A regular guy with a fireman's hose blasts the Hulk and then he goes down, this time for good. I mean, I know the Hulk's mind was being toyed with here a bit, but the fact that a crime circus was able to best him in the first place, not okay. Not okay. Number 9, Doc Ock. In Eric Larson's 1992 Spider-Man run, issue 19 titled Revenge of the Sinister Six showed us a more powerful version of Doc Ock because he had new fancier arms. In fact, the whole crew had the jump on Peter at this point. He was for sure in need of backup. And right on cue, the Hulk smashes through the floor, just sending wood chips all over the damn place. Already such a mess. And he's coming in hot too. The Hulk says knock knock when he busts out of the floor. That is so badass. First he flicks Shocker out of the way, gives him the finger, literally, and then he tosses Mysterio back to sleep. And then when he goes to handle Doc Ock, he's caught off guard from his unbreakable arms with limitless power. Doc Ock had the upper hand, or 4 upper hands, I guess, in this case. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be awesome. No sweat, but it does help us out quite a bit. I'm not going to waste any more time. Thank you so much. For the best. Back to this list. Number 8, the Hulk Killer. With a name like that, you already know how this one's going to end. Created by Sam Stearns, the leader, Hulk Killer first appeared in Tales to Astonish, issue 86. Some detectives are going through the leader's notes. They're finding out that he's created these humanoids, but the Hulk destroyed them all but one. This humanoid was built specifically to take down the Hulk, so the cops call in General Ross. They figure this ought to be an asset in some way, shape, or form for the government, but if only they could bring it to life, because, you know, what would possibly go wrong? So they bring him to life, and it all goes wrong. He just leaves, he walks right out of the building, not even fazed one bit by the bullets, of course. Then the Hulk arrives, they battle it out, and they break their surroundings, but Hulk Killer just simply absorbs all these hits. Next, Hulk Killer beats Hulk so hard, he reverts back into his banner form. It's embarrassing. Number 7, Juggernaut. Kane Marco has been one of Marvel's biggest and baddest since his first appearance in X-Men issue 12. Once Marco came into contact with a gem, he then obtained the power of the Crimson Bands of Sidorak, becoming a human Juggernaut. Literally. The Hulk on average can beat Juggernaut, but in Incredible Hulk issue 402, Hulk bumps into this Jack dude who he realizes is not just an ordinary construction worker after all, rather it's Marco. Hulk thinks he has him. He tries to save Juggernaut's life after he falls into quicksand, but then he tries to pull Hulk in as well, so Hulk's like, alright, forget it, I'm gonna let you sink. See ya. Then of course he popped out of the quicksand and the beating continued and it kept going and going and the Hulk went down until he was almost dead. And that's when Red Skull stepped in and told Kane that was enough beating for now. Number 6, Zax. Making its first appearance in the Incredible Hulk issue 166, the Thing from the Dynamo was originally the result of an accident that happened at Edison Nuclear Power Plant. When a group of criminals tried to power off New York City, it went south, the toughest gang in town, shutting down the power during Game of Thrones. That's truly, truly awful. Keep it up, guys. So guns started blazing and it caused this massive chain reaction in the atomic reactor, and then this living energy then absorbed them, and then soon took a humanoid form with a villain voice as well, of course. Zax absorbs the electricity from its victims' minds as well, so it gains their thoughts. Hawkeye comes in with a convenient foam arrow. In fact, Hawkeye's aim saved the day here, but they don't give him credit. They actually give the Hulk the credit, which is pretty rough. But don't worry, Hulk got what was coming from Zax when General Ross merged with the living energy and then beat down Hulk and Rick Jones. Ross was actually about to finish the pair off, but Zax's personality came back and then he flew off. That was a close call, Banner. A little too close. Number 5, Brian Banner. The father of Bruce Banner was honestly a pretty horrible guy. He killed Bruce's mother is honestly pure evil, and he of course was locked away for 15 years afterwards, and then when him and Bruce reunited down the road, Bruce accidentally killed him. Yikes. Now this isn't the end of his story though, because during the Chaos War storyline in Incredible Hulk's issue 619, his dad comes back as a Hulk demon who would get stronger the angrier Banner got. Now obviously this is a traumatic experience, going down memory lane can hurt quite a bit, so this demon Hulk dad would have finished off Bruce if Jarella didn't step in to save the day. Bruce has the brain and Brian's got the pain. The Banners are a wild bunch. Number 4, Horfin. Born the offspring of a frost giant and Fenris, Horfin first appeared in the Incredible Hulk issue 422. When the Warriors 3 and the Hulk were going after Agamemnon, they followed them to Singard Castle. Horfin was created purely to guard this castle, so now the Hulk has to fight a frost wolf. And this is pretty intimidating because when the frost giant Singard himself unleashed his Horfin, the order was to kill the Hulk right off the bat. No warning, nothing. Just go eat him. Bye, go. And it did. Yeah. I did mention this wolf was incredibly big, right? What a snack. Number 3, Pit. Image Comics introduced Pit in Youngblood issue 4. It was their version of the Hulk. He's an alien-human hybrid created by the Creed as a literal death machine. So 5 years later, Marvel gave the fans the ultimate battle and released Hulk Pit Reality Check. This was just 50 pages of punching and smashing and kicking. It's exactly what you would expect and want. But Pit remained on top for the most part of this fight, and you gotta include Image Comics whenever we can, because Pit is a treat. He's also drooling and jacked. He's just a nightmare. I would never want to deal with him. Number 2, Thanos. This is the only movie reference in this list, but I do have to include it. The time Thanos punched the Hulk in the neck so hard that the beast straight up retired. Avengers Infinity War, directed by the lovely Russo brothers, before the title card even pops up in the movie, before it's like, bam, Avengers, the Incredible Hulk is gone. You don't see him anymore. He pops out and tries to get the upper hand on Thanos, and without even using the Power Stone, Thanos rock and boppers his neck. Now, we don't see the Hulk after this for 5 whole years. And even then, he's like taking selfies and dabbing. It's not the same at all. And finally, number 1, Maestro. Maestro comes from an alternate future on Earth 9200, the Future Imperfect storyline. Now this takes place 90 years in the future, and that Hulk had basically just absorbed all this radiation from our fallen planet over time. He gets stronger, and unfortunately he also gets smarter. This isn't a dumb Hulk that gets, hosed down at a circus. This is the Maestro we're talking about. So our Incredible Hulk goes to fight him, but on the way into the massive city of Dystopia, appropriately named, Hulk finds all these weapons and artifacts from all of our fallen heroes. This new world was much harder to survive in, even with superpowers. And that's when Hulk meets up with his old friend, Rick Jones. Rick fills Banner in that basically everybody's dead except for those residing in Maestro's dystopia. He would keep the radiation level low enough for people to survive, but he would also keep it high enough for him to continue being powered up. Maestro ends up Minecrafting his way to Jones' secret base, and the two Hulks come face to face. Now part 2 of the story is obviously just a massive fight. Maestro is terrifying. He calls Banner out on a bluff, and then he just tosses a lady to smithereens. Like, he actually doesn't care. He'll kill anybody in his way. It's terrifying. Hulk hits him where the sun doesn't shine, and Maestro sneaks up and breaks his neck, ending the battle and the story just like that.
Number 6, Rogue. This comes to us from X-Men Legacy 267. This was during the whole Avengers versus X-Men arc lead up surrounding everything. This is where the Phoenix Force and Hope Summers were viewed as the saviors of mutant kind. However, by other heroes it was viewed as more of a threat because, I mean, the Phoenix Force, pretty dangerous. Cap and Iron Man would go hard trying to capture Hope Summers, and this would lead them into many conflicts with the X-Men. Iron Man actually goes to Xavier's school, institute, Jean Grey's, whatever we're calling it at that point, and finds himself having to take on Rogue. And even though he points out that he's beaten her once before, she says that that was a different time. And then he also makes the mistake of attacking Gambit, which sends Rogue into a berserker-like rage, and she channels the She-Hulk's powers and just literally punches right through him. She just pummels him till all his armor is just bits on the ground. It's a good thing these armors are durable, / sometimes he's not actually in them, because otherwise he'd be dead several times over, which we're gonna get to later on. Dead Tony, that is. Don't mess with Rogue, or apparently more importantly, don't mess with Gambit. Number 5, the Winter Soldier. That's right, Bucky Barnes gets to make this list twice, but this time from the comic book universe. The return of Bucky Barnes was a huge event in comic book fandom, because for a time he had been viewed as one of these sacred deaths, one of those characters that was not coming back. However, things change, and his return arc was pretty well received. In Captain America 33, which followed Civil War, well, he was out to get some revenge on Tony, because at the end of Civil War, Captain America was assassinated on the courthouse steps. So Bucky felt that this was Iron Man's fault, using the whole if you two hadn't been fighting and this hadn't happened, he wouldn't have been there kind of logic. So the two would get into it, and ultimately Bucky would get the upper hand by pushing him into a set of power lines that would overload his suit, which, I mean, you would think that that would happen a lot more often. I feel like I should be taking notes. Bucky Barnes is all the simple tricks. Number 4, What If Spider-Man Back in Black, which for a while I was like, that sounds like an album title, and then I remembered that it was AC/DC. I redeemed myself. This What If takes us back to, again, some events from Civil War. After Peter revealed his identity at Tony's behest, it did not go well for him, and Aunt May ended up getting shot. Well, on this What If, it's Mary Jane who gets shot, and Spider-Man goes right off the deep end, even though in main canon he was willing to sacrifice his marriage and memories of being with her to get Aunt May back. But you know what? That's neither here nor there. We're talking about Back in Black. In this comic, he decides that he's gonna put that black suit back on, he's gonna go get revenge, and he's out to kill. Well, he ends up getting into a fight with Iron Man, and he actually puts his hand over the repulsor ray, which causes it to reflect back on Tony. This takes him out, puts him down for the count, and Peter can go off on his killing spree. Just everybody and all the realities, Civil War. Number 3, Superior Iron Man. Ah yes, evil Tony Stark, who was around after the Axis event, which was an event where you saw heroes and villains swapped. And everyone went back to normal except for Tony, who not everybody was aware was evil Tony for a little bit. Well, in issue 9 of the Superior Iron Man, he would end up battling it out with Pepper Potts, who was in some Iron Man armor of her own, which was deemed inferior Iron Man armor. However, despite this, she was able to get the armor off of Superior Tony Iron Man with an electromagnetic pulse, which was pretty satisfying, just that she knew all the kind of little secrets to dismantle him. Pepper's put up with a lot over the years. So much more in the comics. So much more. Number 2, Avengers X Sanction, aka Iron Man fights Cable, and you know you want to see that. Cable was definitely there when it came down to protecting Hope Summers, even though he was being overwhelmed by the techno-organic virus inside his body, but I mean, that hasn't stopped him before and it doesn't stop him here. He was actually able to defeat Tony by using some future Stark technology that Tony had not invented yet, which of course he uses to mock Tony with to no end. He's even able to corrupt and overwhelm Tony's suit and then punches him right up into the Red Hulk. It's just never a great time to be Tony. Definitely not on this list. It was pretty cool design for Cable with this, with the reactor right in the center, his metal arm, just, you know, all the Cableness. And finally, in at number 1. I think you were waiting for it. I think you know what it is. That's right, it's Civil War 2. The event's so nice, they did it twice. Here we have a lot of the same story beats being covered, but instead we have Iron Man in the role of Cap and Captain Marvel Carol Danvers in the role of Iron Man. This one would center around the Minority Report dilemma. There should be stop crimes before they happen. Is that ethical or right? Well, after War Machine, who was at the time Carol's boyfriend, gets fridged, she is 100% for we need to stop all these crimes before they even happen, and she is off. This ultimately ends up with a giant climactic battle where she beats Tony to death. This is a moment that would cause a lot of contention, especially because there was a decent amount of contention surrounding Carol at this point in time anyway. So it was very quickly dealt with in the comics with, oh no, but Tony had an AI, and then that AI built a body, and we can all just pretend that that AI is Tony.
Number 5, Tony and Dr. Doom. So before we talk about this one, we're gonna fill you in a little bit on Doreen Green. She made her comic book debut in Marvel Superheroes Volume 2, Issue 8, back in the early 90s. Now, she was born with these squirrel-like abilities. Her name is Squirrel Girl. She has a tail. Right, you get it. She learned that she could communicate with squirrels at a young age. She was 10. So in an early comic book, she took on Doctor Doom at one point. In Marvel Superheroes Issue 8, she bumps into Tony Stark and she's showing off, right? She wants him to see what she can do. It's pretty impressive for a pitch. Squirrels start coming in out of nowhere. It's like a musical. It's nice. And then she commands them all to jump onto Tony, and even he's impressed. He's like, wow, this is crazy. And then in comes Doctor Doom to make things even more crazy. Doom interrupts Stark's electronics, and just like that, Tony is out of the fight, which was going to be my main point here. But in order to save Tony, Squirrel Girl had to send a horde of squirrels onto Doom's ship to get him out. That's how Tony Stark needs to be saved, a bunch of squirrels. Now, these squirrels weren't part of the Avengers. They were just able to be controlled by Doreen. So no idea how these squirrels with little hands took down Doctor Doom. They didn't even get a chance to fight. Doctor Doom saw all this and he was like, I'm out of here. The Avengers, I can fight. A bunch of squirrels? No, that's where I draw the line. And then Doreen later joined the Avengers in their 2017 run. What a time. Number 4, Wolverine gets even more ripped. In our last video, we broke down some Ultimate Wolverine facts and his super cool adamantium skeleton that isn't as strong as it is in our regular Marvel 616 universe. Now, it still sounds like a pretty good time. You have adamantium laced into your bones, like the Terminator almost. But one time, Magneto used that weakened adamantium against him. It's just as horrible as you're probably imagining. This all takes place during the Fatal Attractions event, and honestly, I got goosebumps reading this. The adamantium mixed with his bones wasn't that strong, so Magneto pulled the adamantium out and it was like water coming out of his body. It was loose, it was liquidy, and it probably didn't feel good. Professor X thankfully wiped his mind after he healed, which is great, but what about us? I need my mind erased after I just saw that. Are you kidding? Just gonna live in my head rent-free. Number 3, The Flash vs. Turtle Man. The Flash is the fastest man alive, but in his debut comic, it was a bit of a rocky start for the Scarlet Speedster. In Showcase issue 4, his powers are presented to him. He sees food in the air. It's a great time. It's super speedster. Now, when Barry comes across the slowest man on Earth, the Turtle Man, appropriately named, it's actually quite challenging. It takes him a few tries to get to him. Barry runs into a wall at first because there's a painting on it and he thought that was Turtle Man. So he runs into it Roadrunner style. He runs right through the wall. Bonk, okay, weird. And then the chase continues because Turtle Man gets in a rowboat and takes off in the water. But Barry doesn't have a boat, right? But no boat, no problem. Barry now realizes he can run on water. So now the fight should be over in at least 3 seconds. Barry still can't get a hold of this guy in a rowboat. He keeps running by him and he's just missing the boat. It's so infuriating. Now, eventually Barry whips a few donuts around him, but I mean, it's not like the rowboat was doing zigzags. He was going 3 miles an hour, just straight. Number 2, The Punch. This one comes from Justice League issue 5. Now, in this comic, Batman came in to take over the Justice League International, and Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, doesn't share the same enthusiasm as the rest of the team. He makes it pretty clear for more than one issue that he doesn't like this new leader. Although Batman is clearly a better fit, but whatever. So he got so upset that he challenged Batman to a fight without the use of his power ring. So Batman's like, all right, let's do this. And then Batman knocked him out with one punch. Blue Beetle got jazzed. He was like Joe Rogan at a UFC night. He was like, one punch, one punch. Oh my God, he was losing his mind. This is a great moment and a greater lesson. Don't take the ring off that makes you a superhero, or else you're just a regular guy fighting Batman. Literally. And finally, number 1, Bruiser vs. Wolverine. Runaways issue 12. We see Logan and Molly Hayes, aka Bruiser, have a rather quick fight. Now, at this time, Wolverine was a member of the New Avengers, and he's trying to get to the bottom of what happened to Dagger. So he, Cap, and Iron Man went to find help from the Runaways, seeing as the signs were leading to Cloak being responsible. Now, Molly, right off the bat, okay, she's one of the strongest superheroes ever, but how she handled Wolverine was way too easy, especially now that he's an Avenger. Like, he's on the top of his game. So the big 3 walk into the cathedral. Cap calmly asks her to stop screaming, and Wolverine and him are not going to hurt her. The screaming continues, and Wolverine asks if she's heard of heightened senses, right? It probably didn't feel good. He gives her 3 seconds to stop drilling a hole into his brain. He counts 3, 2, and then the next page, he was outside face down in the snow. Just like that. One hit, bam, he was eliminated. And then when he comes back in, he's actually embarrassed. I mean, fair. he just whispers how he won't tell anybody about tonight if they don't. It's kind of funny. Then he brushes snow off, but like, you're an Avenger, Wolverine.
Number 10, Omega Red. While Omega Red has also lost to Wolverine in the past, he's also had his fair share of victories against him. Omega Red initially proved almost too powerful to Wolverine, especially when it came to the use of death spores which weakened him. There was a time when Omega Red successfully captured the hero, and he only succeeded in surviving by getting help to escape, unfit to take on Omega Red alone. More recently in the comics, Omega Red surfaced wanting to join Krakoa, but he was actually revealed to be in league with Dracula, and in fact helped Dracula to get his hands on Wolverine's blood, enabling the villain to walk in the sun. Since then, Omega Red has chosen to portray Dracula being truthful with the mutants and becoming their true ally, but Logan of course still finds it hard to trust him. He doesn't really believe he's the true ally. Perhaps because Wolverine himself remembers all the times that Omega Red has stabbed him in the front and the back and just basically stabbed him all around with his carbonadium tentacles. Number 9, Mysterio. Mysterio in an alternate reality completely defeats Wolverine, and in the most horrible way. In the Old Man Logan continuity, Mysterio manipulated Wolverine, getting him to fight against and kill all the X-Men, explaining how this could have happened given all their amazing abilities by claiming that his friends would likely hesitate to take him out. Wolverine at the time thought he was taking on a bunch of supervillains who had invaded the mansion, and Mysterio also claims that Wolverine's ego is kinda to blame for him accepting the illusion. After all, Wolverine believing that he could have possibly taken on all of these supervillains himself all at once does seem pretty arrogant. I gotta say, I kind of agree with Mysterio here. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists where we get to tell you stories about people kicking other people's butts, I love telling these stories, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Sabretooth. Sabretooth has beaten Logan so many times that I've personally lost count. Sometimes it seems as though Victor's sole purpose has been to make Wolverine suffer. Case in point, how it became a tradition for Sabretooth to go and mess up Wolverine once a year on his birthday. Sabretooth has also been the mastermind behind a great deal of psychological plots to mess with Logan, including at one point pitting his son Daken against him, forcing Wolverine to kill his own son. Wolverine thought this was how it had to be at the time, but he would actually later learn that it all happened due to the machinations of Sabretooth. People don't often think about how smart Sabretooth is, but he's pretty crafty. Number 7, Mystique. Mystique is one of those villains you don't want to underestimate because, well, it's really dangerous to do so. Case in point, why do I say case in point so much? Who's been saying that to me that I've been putting this in my script? An example being when Wolverine thought he had killed her and would never see her again, only for her to return having been resurrected by the Hand to get revenge on Wolverine for killing her. She not only defeated him in a physical sense, but also in a mental sense, using him to get information and also to mess with his head when she posed as Yukio. She really messed with him. But that's Mystique for you. Number 6, Spore. While Spore was an insanely powerful villain who did end up defeated in the end, it wasn't actually Wolverine that did the defeating in this scenario. Though he did fight against Spore. Spore appears in one of the earlier stories in Wolverine Volume 2 and was created by Archie Goodwin and John Byrne. It was an ancient entity who first appeared in issue 21, where we learned that the drug that was being used to increase the strength of Roundhouse at the cost of his sanity was actually a part of that villain, and that using that drug was kind of how it infected its victims and was able to move more into the physical world through them. Spore, it turned out, was an ancient bioweapon created by the Deviants long ago that had laid dormant on planet Earth after requiring the strength of a Celestial in order to be defeated the first time around. Although Wolverine struggled to defeat this enemy, the possibly mutant healer Sister Salvation managed to use her powers to defeat it, cleansing Spore permanently, but at great cost, with her hands and possibly ability to heal becoming dramatically damaged afterwards. But Wolverine couldn't have done that alone. He needed the Sister Salvation backup for that one. Number 5, Madeline Pryor. Another enemy who Wolverine likely wouldn't stand a chance against is Madeline Pryor. In the What If Inferno issue, we get to see what would happen if Madeline Pryor had won the day and she and Sim basically turned Wolverine into their little pet, unleashing his feral side and making him a complete monster. And I really do mean a complete monster. The hero doesn't even stand a chance against their influence as they help him to give in to the darker side of himself that he's always been working so hard to repress. It's even worse than losing a battle or his life, because in this story, Wolverine loses his morality and basically his humanity. I think that's worse. Is that worse than death? I think it's worse than death. If you lose entirely who you are. Number 4. Dracula. Dracula is a long-standing villain for the X-Men and Wolverine. As we discussed earlier with Omega Red, the villain recently managed to best Wolverine by concocting a plan to capture him and use his blood to power up himself and his other loyal vampires, forcing Omega to become his undercover agent on Krakoa. Of course, in the end, Omega Red would turn against him, allowing Wolverine and the other mutants to strike back, but during that first story of the new series back in issue 1, Wolverine saw himself pretty heartily defeated at the hands of Dracula, and what made it worse is that he didn't really even understand at the time that he had been playing right into Dracula's hands. Number 3. Magneto. Magneto is of course another major supervillain who bested Wolverine. He was the one responsible for transforming him into a feral version of himself, stripping Wolverine of the adamantium that coated his skeleton. This was a huge part of us learning more about Wolverine's abilities and his power set. This is when it was revealed that his claws were actually bone claws and they were themselves coated. We also learned here that he had the capacity to be intensely feral. I mean, we'd always known that Wolverine had a wild side, a feral side. It had been alluded to in the comics, but we didn't know just how wild Logan could be. Don't worry though, although Wolverine lost all of his adamantium in the fight against Magneto and his nose, Professor X made sure that Magneto paid for what he'd done, and that he could never hurt anyone again by completely cutting off his mind, in essence kinda leaving Magneto still physically alive but brain dead. It should also be noted that Magneto has killed Wolverine many times across multiple different realities and timelines. Number 2. Apocalypse. Apocalypse is a villain that Wolverine has faced across many different realities, whether with a team or on his own. In some realities, Wolverine has managed to eventually win the war against Apocalypse, but has also lost battles here and there along the way. In the X-Men animated series from the 90s, we see no exception, as Wolverine attempts to take on Apocalypse alongside the X-Men. When it's his turn to strike, he completely misses Apocalypse with his claws, who manages to escape along with most of his horsemen. Kind of embarrassing. Number 1. Dark Phoenix. While Jean Grey would likely never want to hurt Wolverine, and he has honestly almost killed her on a few occasions across the multiverse, always to her benefit of course, usually, to avoid her having to suffer. When Dark Phoenix emerges, it's quickly made apparent just how much stronger this persona and force is in comparison to Wolverine. When the darker side of Phoenix Force makes itself known at one point during Phoenix Endsong, Wolverine doesn't stand a chance against it. In fact, he only survives his fight with the Dark Phoenix because he fits into her plan, with her aiming to use him as bait. It does seem as though he succeeds in weakening the Dark Phoenix, but once again, this seems to all be part of the Phoenix Force's plan, allowing her to take a more active role as she works towards getting what she wants, which she thinks at the time is Cyclops and his unlimited energy source, his optic blasts, but in reality what Phoenix really wants is to feel whole again and feel loved.
Bullseye and Deadpool. These guys are just perfect for each other. In Daniel Way's Deadpool, we got to see these guys duke it out multiple times, as Norman Osborn has hired Bullseye to take out Deadpool, but it's not the quick and easy job he's hoping it'll be. Bullseye is operating as part of Norman's Dark Avengers, playing the part of Hawkeye, so he's got a pretty neat Hawkeye-inspired costume. These guys have some great showdowns, including the first one that ends with Deadpool taking an arrow straight to the head. Somehow these guys just can't get enough of each other though, and end up at each other's throats again real soon. In a super epic moment later in the story, Bullseye launches a missile at Deadpool, who happens to be driving a huge ass truck at the time. He Tokyo drifts the truck, whipping it sideways, and narrowly misses the rocket, which goes streaming right through the cockpit of the truck. It's a super awesome moment, and these guys have a nice laugh about it afterwards. This duo obviously has a pretty good time trying to kill each other, and that could be the reason that they never actually get the job done. Bullseye winds up having to pay Deadpool off in the end, which is pretty embarrassing when your whole thing is that you're a hitman who never misses. Hey guys, don't forget to take a second to hit that like button, it really helps us out here at Top 10 Nerd. Number 9. Thanos Arrested. Oh man, this one is great. In this issue of Spidey Super Stories, number 39, there's a story called Dog Day Afternoon, where we see Spidey and Cat team up to take on Thanos. The story opens with Thanos buzzing around in his Thanos copter, and then he's all like, whoops, drop the old Infinity Cube, while he's battling with Cat. The two part ways, each hoping to find the cube first, but instead some kid finds it, and it eventually winds up back in Thanos' hands. This leads to a spectacular showdown, chock full of hilarious puns. Seriously, these guys do not let up with the cat and dog puns in this story. Thanos winds up using the cube a second time, causing an earthquake. And the earthquake makes him drop the cube again with a big oops, and this kid from earlier picks it up and uses the cube to subdue Thanos, tying him up in the grass. In the end, Thanos is arrested by the NYPD for his crimes, and it's pretty embarrassing. In fact, the entire story kind of makes Thanos look like an idiot, but it's pretty funny and definitely worth checking out. Number 8. Loki vs. Hulk. This epic moment from Joss Whedon's astonishing X-Men was honored in a glorious way in the first Avengers movie. After leading his alien army into New York and promptly losing to the Avengers, Loki is scheming for a way to change the tide and possibly get ahead when the Hulk shows up. Loki goes on a bit of a tirade about his power and majesty, but the Hulk is not amused. What happens next is a hilarious moment I'm sure you all remember, with Hulk grabbing the puny god and whacking him against the floor and walls with the gusto of a middle-aged man with a Terry's chocolate orange. Loki finds himself quickly buried in rubble and serves as a great reminder that if you're not prepared to take on the Hulk, you probably shouldn't even bring your evil empire to Earth. Number 7. Sabretooth and Wolverine. These two guys have a lengthy history of kicking the crap out of each other, and their origins are even wrapped together, so it kind of seems like they're destined to go toe-to-toe for centuries. Sabretooth is a bit obsessive about Wolverine, seeking him out every year on his birthday and making his life a living hell. Given that they both have a crazy powerful healing factor, you would think that they'd just fight forever like Joker and Batman, but that's before Wolverine finds a sword that can nullify healing factor. He uses it to take out Sabretooth in seconds, slicing clean through his neck and sending his head flying off like a dodgeball. It's a super badass moment, and totally awesome to finally see Sabretooth get what's been coming to him. It's a comic book death though, so before you know it, Sabretooth is getting brought back to life, being brought back from hell by a cult of magic ninjas. That's just the way it goes. Number 6. Ord vs. Colossus. So Colossus technically died in 2001, but it was a comic book death and you know how those go. In 2004, Joss Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men gave Colossus an epic return as he goes up against the supervillain Ord in issue number 5. Ord is an alien super warrior and a pretty serious dude. He once took on the X-Men by himself before Colossus had joined the team. These two have a bit of a history as Ord experimented on Colossus's body against his will to help create the mutant cure. Experimenting on somebody usually leaves them foaming at the mouth, raging for revenge, and Colossus was definitely ready for some vengeance. Ord asks him, "Do you think you can stand against me because you're made of steel?" To which Colossus responds, "Not steel, rage! I'm made of rage!" And he just totally lays the beat down, even delivering a signature double hammer fist, Hulk style.
In a 10, Hulk. Okay, we all know the Hulk, and we all love him. So much so that even suggesting that MCU Captain Marvel can beat MCU Hulk apparently deserves 2 years of hate, even if it was my second video. Thanks, Sasha. However, the Hulk has defeated a god, which is no easy feat. In the first Avengers movie, which is the time I'll be referring to, hence why it's at the top, because you're gonna be mad at me, Hulk beat Loki down so hard that even years later, come Thor Ragnarok, Loki was still scared of him, which is pretty damn awesome. You know the scene. It's iconic. Hulk picks up Loki, then smashes him around a million different ways. Actually, it's just one, by smashing him on the ground over and over again, but it's still hilarious and one of the best scenes in the entire MCU. Hulk beating down Loki is such an iconic moment now, and even before this, he punched Thor in the face and knocked him across the room, so it's safe to say that Hulk deserves to be on this list, even if it's the MCU version that I got hate for mentioning before. And at 9, Batman. Now, while this isn't an instance of Batman beating an actual god, someone who, I guess in our religions is considered a god, rather he beat a god that is considered a god, or at the very least god adjacent in his universe, Darkseid. During the Final Crisis storyline from 2008, Batman uses a Radion bullet to mortally wound Darkseid, while Darkseid in turn kills Batman with his Omega beams. Although physically bested and appearing dead, Darkseid's dying essence was still dragging all of reality into nothingness along with it. So even though Batman broke his one rule and created a bullet that could literally kill a god, it wasn't really enough. And then Batman gets gotten by the Omega Beam, and Superman is left at the end of creation and has to literally sing Darkseid apart. Not even kidding. The last of Superman's super breath was used to sing the remaining essence of Darkseid out of existence. I wish I wasn't being serious. This sounds like either the best or the worst episode of Glee ever. It's the only episode that I would watch, if I'm being totally honest. And at 8, Black Bolt. Speaking of voices tearing people apart, we have Black Bolt, the Dragonborn of the Marvel Universe. Another character who didn't exactly defeat a god that we know of, but rather a god that is considered a god in his universe. They say that when Black Bolt came face to face with Apocalypse, he murdered the god with his voice, shouted him apart. Actually, a simple sound was enough to do the man in. Black Bolt has also killed nearly all the Celestials and torn apart space-time with those damn pipes of his. Guess there's more to this tuning fork of a human than meets the eye, or I guess I should say inhuman. I'd never want to get on this guy's bad side, especially like even if we just got into an argument. That would probably be the death of me. Like he would say something extremely controversial and I'd just be like, yeah man, totally. Yeah, just so I don't have to fight him. Or maybe I should say the death of me. No? Too much? Because like, you know, he'd explode my head with sound. So it would be the death of me, but I would also... Okay, moving on. And at 7, Aquaman. With Aquaman being the butt of so many superhero jokes, you wouldn't really expect him to have that many big bad tangles. Maybe a cuttlefish here, or maybe a blobfish is acting out of line there, but that sort of underestimating is actually what got the son of Poseidon's handed to him by the flying fishmonger. Going by the name of Triton, not Percy Jackson unfortunately, the son of Olympic god Poseidon challenged Aquaman to a one-on-one battle. He didn't expect much of a fight, I guess, which just makes me question why he challenged him in the first place. But Triton, due to his arrogance, got his rear presented to him on a silver platter with a side of cheese slices and crackers to boot. In fact, Triton got his beat so bad that Poseidon himself stepped in to save him and then punished Aquaman for absolutely destroying his pathetic little boy. Like, this is some serious rich parent level of bull here. Like, imagine you're on a sports team and you beat the other team so bad that one of the parents comes in and yells at you and then kicks you off your team. That's basically what happened to Aquaman, and that's hilarious. That's not gonna help with the jokes. And at 6, Thor. I know that Thor is a god, but that doesn't mean that I can't count him on this list because he's still a superhero in the Marvel comics. So you know what? It's good enough for me, and for some reason Marvel agrees with me, putting him up against various foes like Olympus cage matches for us to bet on. One that we've seen multiple times, and I mean multiple times, is Thor versus Hercules. In the blue corner, we have the god of lightning, the lord of thunder, the son of Odin, and the mother of dragons, Thor! And in the red corner, we have the god of strength, son of Zeus, and probably not Hera's son, hence why she sent demons after him, at least in the non-Disney adaptation, whose name is also wrong, Hercules! That, for some reason, despite being the god of strength, cannot seem to win against Thor when he uses lightning. Yeah, that's right. Somehow the god of strength and the god of thunder are fairly evenly matched physically, but when Thor starts pulling out some lightning on the son of Zeus, whose father literally wields a lightning bolt, he can't seem to get it up. You know what I really want to see? Thor versus Bonesaw. Bonesaw is ready! Halfway through into number 5, Spectre. Look, I get that the Spectre is an immortal mythical presence that doesn't really have any decent weakness. However, he does possess a mortal man in order to actually be able to do his thing, so he counts with his list. That's right, deal with it. Especially when the spirit of ultimate vengeance fought off Shazam, who is similar to Darkseid and Apocalypse in the sense that he's seen as a god in this universe, or at least god adjacent, since, you know, he's also basically invincible. I guess you could also say that maybe Superman fits that description, but literally anyone who fights him somehow gets their hands on kryptonite, as if it's available at every corner drugstore like plutonium was supposed to be in 1985. If you understand that reference, we can be friends. However, you know, the Spectre is literally a spirit that will just find a new host whenever his old one kicks the bucket, so yeah, it's safe to say that this guy could defeat basically anyone if he tried hard enough and was willing to burn through enough vessels. And at 4, Deadpool. Deadpool, for all of his issues, is certainly a resilient fellow, and shares quite a bit of his character with various different other characters in the Marvel Universe. One of which is that he has a fascination for tricks and impersonations, like Loki. Ironically, Mr. Wilson decided to try and impersonate Thor on multiple occasions. And you know, Thor already has to deal with that kind of BS at home, so when he sees Wade doing it, he isn't happy. And while this may have happened in a non-canon comic, technically it happened in one universe. Since in Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe Volume 12, Deadpool uses Pym particles to enlarge Mjolnir and use it to kill Thor, which has got to be the most brutal kind of taking your own medicine ever. Like, imagine getting squished by your own hammer that only a couple other people in the entire universe can even move. That's a serious kick in the balls, especially because it's Deadpool. Like, you lost to Deadpool. That sucks. Getting close to the end in number 3, Wonder Woman. Do I really need to tell you which god Wonder Woman has defeated? I mean, like, it's kind of obvious. She also had a whole movie about it. The god of war, Kratos, has gone against wait, what? That's the wrong god of war? Oh yes, right. Wonder Woman and Ares have gone head to head multiple times over the various decades of comics. Ares is basically the Joker to Wonder Woman's Batman, at least in my opinion. And honestly, it's not as fair as one might think. Sure, Ares is the god of war, but Wonder Woman still kicks his ass from here to Sunday. Especially after they got rid of that one weakness that I'm pretty sure spoke more about the writer than the character. No matter what, Wonder Woman has still beat Ares, who is a god of war, and therefore belongs on this list, even if it was a fairly obvious number. She also cleaved his head in two at one point, so it's safe to say that if she wasn't on this list, the same thing would happen to me. Either from her or the comments. Penultimately in at number 2, Sentry. Sentry's an absolute powerhouse, so it's no surprise that he's fought and beaten a god, but how he did it is even better. Sentry used to be a part of Norman Osborn's Avengers, who went to Asgard in an attempt to lay siege and claim it, because, you know, it's Norman Osborn's Avengers. However, the Marvel version of the Greek god of war didn't like that idea, so after he learned of Osborn's intentions, he came down to kill the Green Goblin. But Ares did not anticipate Sentry's absolute monster arms, even when Sentry picked him up and tore him in half. This man tore a Greek god in half. He absolutely obliterated the god of war without breaking a sweat. If that doesn't show you the sheer power of Sentry and how overpowered Marvel thinks that Superman is, nothing will. Nothing will show you. You're a lost cause at that point. He tore Ares in half. What? Finally, in number 1, Superman. Superman is basically a god in the DC universe, like I said earlier, but not only is he near godlike in the DC universe, but he's also defeated multiple godlike entities across his decades of comic appearances, including Darkseid after withstanding one of his Omega beams, which is absolutely insane, and Doomsday, who, whenever he gets defeated, gets resurrected, and then cannot be killed in that same way. So you'd have to come up with new ways to kill him every time, which is freaking ridiculous, and eventually Doomsday will just become invincible and everyone will die. I'm just saying, okay? I'm just saying. Superman is also basically unkillable if the enemy plays fair, but let's be honest, when would they do that? They're bad guys. It's what they do. But assuming the world ends up running out of kryptonite, we're also all screwed. We saw what happened with Injustice. Imagine that, but no chance of stopping him, alright? Yeah. Exactly. Also, how specific is the Doomsday thing? Like, does it have to be like, oh, you stabbed him here, so you have to move 2 millimeters over to the left to actually be able to kill him again? Or is it like, oh, you shot him with like a bazooka, so you can't ever shoot him again? And like, does it happen, like, is it every other time that he's died you can't kill him that same way, or is it just the previous one?